Welcome back to the Pain Game YouTube channel. If you haven't heard already, our next big live stream is for the Robert Whittaker versus Khamzat Chimaev UFC event coming 22nd of June, not this weekend, but the weekend after. Can't wait for that. We'll see you all there if you haven't already liked the video. Now, today I've got to get on to Tyson Fury and the latest footage that's come out of him stumbling around in the pub and then falling over when he gets chucked out of the pub, essentially. A lot of people have been sending me this, and I think some people misunderstand the way I work and how I feel about Tyson Fury because, yeah, like, he was a knob to me on an interview, and therefore it was funny to watch him struggle against Francis Ngannou and get dropped in the guy's first ever fight. It was good to see a man like Oleksandr Usyk, who I rate as not only a great fighter, but a massive underdog in that fight, but due to his size, and also a great man. He's such a good human that I couldn't not root for him. So, yeah, when that fight was on, Tyson Fury's talked to me the way he did. Usyk's such a good dude. Yeah, you're damn right I'm fucking rooting for Usyk. And yeah, I've said some funny fucking things about Tyson Fury because I'm a funny fucker, and that's what I do. But I don't want to see this man in a really bad way in life. I might want to see him get outboxed and lose his belt, but I don't want to see him on a mental decline and really struggling emotionally or anything like that. Like, that's just not who I am. If anything, quite the opposite. I fucking love a comeback story, even if you have been a prick to me. And this might not even be anything that serious, right? The guy might have just went out on the night out, he went a bit too far, and he ended up legless. But it is only natural for people to worry about Tyson. We all remember what happened after Klitschko, that massive downward spiral, and the footage back then was eerily similar to this footage. And for the last few years, quite a while in fact, Tyson's done really well to not only lose the weight, turn his life around, and we've not seen any footage really like this of him for years. And that coincides with just a month ago him losing the biggest fight of his life. So logically, you'd think him ended up in this sort of state does have some connection to the Usyk fight. So looking at the video, for him to basically be face planting into the pavement, to be that level of drunk at his size, he's 6'7" and 20 stone, right? I'm a 20 stone man myself, so I know it takes a fuck ton of alcohol for a man that big to end up in that state. So much so that it's not an accident. And again, I'm not saying it's all the Usyk thing, but the reality is, if I had to put money on it, I would say he probably went out with all the best of intentions of just having a good night out. But that pain and that emotional shit that he's carrying around with how he's feeling about himself at the moment, it's there. It's a loud voice in the Fury mind, right? We know he's very up and down and very extreme. And one way people like to silence that voice is through alcohol. I've done it myself. The more you drink, the better you feel sometimes, because it's silencing that misery. And fuck me, I can't judge the guy for that. I've done it myself. How can I possibly? And sometimes you just keep drinking and drinking, and before you know it, fucking shit's gone south. And fair fucks to him. I'm not gonna fucking hate on the guy for that. He's wounded. He's hurting. It's nice to see a human side of him for a change, weirdly. I'm not saying I want to see him like this, but I can connect. I can actually relate to this right now. He's been so unrelatable for the last few years and everything he's been coming out with that, like, just to see him hurting and like a normal person drinking his sorrows away, if anything, you just have to say fair play, that's human. You're not acting like the big champion. You're not acting like the greatest man born from his mother and all of that. You're just being a bloke who's struggling. So fair fucks. And as I say, I've done it myself, and sometimes you just need that one night, that one blowout to let off some steam and say, fuck me, life's hard. And then you have your hangover and you say, I'm never fucking doing that again. And you pull yourself together a bit. And maybe that's all this is. But one thing's for sure, that can't continue. If Tyson Fury is taking this rematch, he has a man living like an actual Spartan, training, waiting for him in December. So by all means, have your moment, but it's got to be a moment. This cannot continue. If we see more of this, well, then we'll be really worried. And it is sad. I'm not sitting there watching that video fucking giggling away that he's struggling mentally, because that's not me. I don't care what people have said about me. I don't spend time wanting bad for other people's lives. My hope for this guy actually comes from something Eddie Hearn said to us in the podcast I did, where he said, you really need to be wounded when you lose a fight as a fighter. If you're not, something's wrong. If you're not in major pain, gutted, crying, maybe you need a drink, like, when it first happens or whatever, and just sick at the fact that you've lost that fight, well, then give it up, because this ain't for you. If you're fine with the fact that you've just lost that fight, well, you're never going to put in the level of work and dedication to overcome an Oleksandr Usyk. It's not happening. So weirdly, as sad as this is to see, providing it doesn't continue, it may be a slight window into the soul of Tyson Fury where we realize, oh fuck. For all he claimed he didn't care about the belts and undisputed and da-da-da-da-da, this is majorly bothering him. And he needs to use that fuel in the right way now, not to just get drunk and destroyed. And you've got to imagine the mind of Tyson Fury has probably not been an easy place to live. For a long time, he's been claiming he's the greatest heavyweight of all time, yada, yada, yada. Meanwhile, he's not been fighting the Usyks or the AJs. So there's been a weight there, which has increased the pressure because the speculation has been from people like me, well, why isn't he fighting them yet? And that's added pressure more and more and more. So when he got on that stage before the fight, and I said, look, he doesn't look confident, he looks nervous, he didn't look like a man who was just about to win a fight, that pressure has been there, building for quite some time. And after the result, that pressure is now being released. But it's not just pressure from himself, it's been pressure from other people. Let's not kid ourselves about the way Big John's been talking about him for the longest time, right? Your own dad is telling you, no man born from his mother can beat my son, you know? You don't want to disappoint your dad. You don't want to disappoint your family who've built you up into this mythical boxer. And now you've lost, and all of these people are probably getting around him and saying all the right things to him. They're probably saying, you know, it's fine. He doesn't want to hear it. His lifelong identity has been the greatest boxer alive in his own mind and from the people around him. And now when they say those things, if it's fine, he's, you know, you'll get him back, yada, 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 it's not enough for him because he knows what they all used to call him and what he called himself, and he's not that anymore. And it's very hard when something you've built yourself up into in your mind for decades is all of a sudden gone. Now, logically, he's still a great fighter, and there's no shame in losing to one of the greats, in my opinion, in Oleksandr Usyk. But for Tyson Fury, he's not thinking logically. He's been robbed. He's had everything he thought he was stolen from him by this guy, a man he thought was a jumped up middleweight, and all the other things he called him. That's gotta sting, man. And we've seen fighters before when everything about their identity has been, I'm undefeated, I'm undefeated, I'm undefeated. When they lose that all, sometimes they're never the same again. And I'm not saying that this is going to happen to Fury, because if there's one guy who you'd probably bet on to be resilient enough to come back from that, it's probably him, to be fair. For all I fucking take the piss, he's a tough son of a bitch. I'll never fucking say any different. But even for him, this is going to be hard. And that footage is a bit of evidence of that. And it says a lot about the strength of booze when this man's been in the ring with dozens of heavyweight boxers, and yet I think that's the most out of it we've seen him, and yet he still wasn't totally out of it. So fair fucks. And it's ironic because people have suggested, like, if he hadn't have had the booze issue in the first place and piled on 10 stone in the middle of the prime of his life after the Klitschko fight, and not had to lose 10 stone and make this monumental comeback where God knows the level of damage that was done to his joints and his knees trying to run off that fucking weight. If he'd never touched booze in the first place, who knows, he might have fucking beat Oleksandr Usyk. I'm not saying he would have done, but like, it couldn't have done him any harm to not have to lose all that fucking weight and take 3 or 4 years out of boxing. Alcohol is his enemy, clearly, and I hope he does get a hold of that and that this is just a one-off. But maybe the fact that the footage has come out will actually do him a favour, because A, it'll force him to recognise, fuck me, that's how bad I was. And look, I don't like the fact that people recorded him, because people do that all. It's weird, man. Just let the guy have a fucking night out. And people might say, oh, you're reporting on it. It's over the whole fucking internet, mate. It doesn't matter if I fucking talk about it or not. It's everywhere. If anyone's complaining about that, by the way. But look, you've had a moment where the whole world now sees you in a bit of a vulnerable place. Do you remember that you used to do that a lot? You used to let us in a lot. Yeah, he'd always back his boxing skill, but he would be very human, and that was the reason I became a mega fan of Tyson Fury. But that version of him has been so long gone because he's carried himself as someone who never makes mistakes, who's always right, and you can't challenge a fucking thing he says. And maybe this just might bring him back to reality and make him a bit more human and a bit more humble. Because if I was his PR team now, I would use this to try and sway the public back again, because fuck me, they've checked out. Be a bit vulnerable. People admire vulnerability because it's fucking hard to get up in front of a group of people, especially if you're a heavyweight champion of the world, or you used to be, and say, I'm struggling, I'm hurting. Takes balls. We like that. So if he was to do a little interview where he was like, yeah, I'm fucking wounded, I'm struggling, like, you know, I really wanted to win that fight, yada, yada, yada. Just let us in a little bit. People will root for you again. My God, will they? Not everyone, obviously, but he might win a few people back, because it's been a long time since we've had a bit of that from Fury. And this does remind me a little bit of when Conor McGregor lost, and I had John Kavanagh on the podcast, his coach, and he said, look, you've got to accept those emotions, let them wash through you, and feel the bitterness, feel the pain, and use that as fuel to get you up every fucking morning and train even harder harder for this fight, providing you believe you can beat him. Obviously, there is a chance that Fury's getting pissed and doesn't believe that and thinks, fuck me, I gave it everything I had and it still wasn't good enough and now I don't know where to go. That is a possibility here. But you'd think a fighter like him who has the self-belief he's shown and won as much as he has would look at those middle rounds that he won and go, I can do that for longer, I can do more of that, yada, 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 and believe. I'd be surprised if he didn't. I think it is more likely that he's suffering with the defeat a little bit, the voices in the head needed to be silenced for that night, and he just had a skinful. Thought, fuck it. You just can't carry on doing that with a fight against Usyk on the horizon. No chance. We already know after that last fight, the strategy didn't work, and it's going to take a monumental effort from Tyson Fury to beat Usyk. You can't box on the back foot, you've got to go after him. And that's going to take some energy, which means heavy training and concentration and balls the size of fucking Texas. Because to go into a shootout with Usyk and race him downhill to see who crashes first, it's not for the faint-hearted. Like, you either win big or you get knocked out. And that's the way Fury has to approach this rematch, in my opinion. And he needs to be training for it right fucking now. So that's all I've got to say on this for now. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. I'm really interested to see what the divide is like in what side you take on this. And hit the like button if you haven't already. And I do hope that people don't give a shit for covering this. The guy is the former heavyweight champion of the world. He's just lost the biggest fight of his career. And he's previously suffered with alcohol addiction issues. We've seen him spiral massively. Clearly, this isn't just normal boxing news like any other boxer going for a night out. Like, there's a reason everyone's fucking sent me it, right? So I'm not trying to kick the guy while he's down. That's the last thing I'm trying to do here. And I hope it's come across in the right way. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Let us know what you thought in the comments below. And I'll see you on the next one.